California is a huge place. With such a huge area, about 164,000 miles, there's room for plenty of different biomes to exist. Northern California is known for being more foresty and home of the state's capital, Sacramento. And Southern California is known for Hollywood celebrities, beaches, and being insanely hot all the time. There's also Central California, where there's a bunch of farming and agricultural stuff that goes on, but for today we're just going to focus on Southern California. Hey everyone, my name's Francisco, and today I'm going to be talking to you about two of the largest bodies of water in Southern California, the Salton Sea and Lake Elsinore. Lake Elsinore is the largest natural freshwater lake in Southern California, and it has a surface area of about 4 square miles or about 3,000 acres, and it's located in Riverside County. The Salton Sea is a bit bigger than Lake Elsinore. It's about 380 square miles or about 240,000 acres, and it crosses the border between Riverside County and Imperial County. The body of water that we know as Lake Elsinore has come and gone for a number, countless years. And actually the Luiseno peoples were the first known inhabitants of the valley where Lake Elsinore is located. They originally called it Entengvo Womoma, which is translated roughly to the hot springs by the little sea. And similarly, the Salton Sea is also referred to as Lake Cahuilla by the Cahuilla peoples who have inhabited the area around the Salton Sink for countless years. Both the Salton Sea and Lake Elsinore have had this history of being full of water, then evaporating, then filling up again, and throughout the years just constantly going through that cycle. Aside from having this shared history with indigenous peoples from California, they also were both very popular resort areas in the past. From the late 1800s to the mid 1900s, families would travel to these lakes to soak up the sun, go kayaking, and I guess travel on yachts as well. Anyways, another big thing that these two large bodies of water share is that they both have had a history of releasing pollutants into the air. As they're both located in Southern California, they both get a lot of sunlight, and so evaporation has always been a big problem at both of these lakes. Algae blooms and pesticides are released as a result of this evaporation, which is really harmful to the communities around these large bodies of water. It's also harmful for the animals in the area, as algae blooms usually result in fish dying off, which both Lake Elsinore and the Salton Sea have had a history of. For today's video, what I want to do is a brief survey of both of these lakes, how the communities have been addressing these environmental issues, and what the possible futures of these two lakes might look like. The effects of anthropogenic climate change will definitely have an impact on how these large bodies of water are managed in the future. So it's important that we think about what we can do to ensure environmental justice in these communities. So to start off, I want to take us over to Lake Elsinore and just kind of talk a little bit more about some of the history and how they've created plans to keep the water levels at what they are right now, and if that's something that's feasible for the Salton Sea to do as well. Lake Elsinore is the oldest city in Riverside County. It was originally incorporated in 1888 and was named after a castle from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Although the lake was an attraction for some people, most of the city's economy was based around agriculture and mining. There were also some hot springs nearby that would draw visitors to the town. The city had a number of bathhouses, churches, schools, and even a functioning water system in these early days. But I don't want to talk too much about the town itself, so let's move over to the lake. In the 1920s, people began coming to the lake more often to view the boating races and visit the nearby hot springs. People would also tour the lake on these giant boats. Given the size of the lake, this seems a bit over the top, but I guess it probably helped for tourism. As mentioned before, the body of water that we know as Lake Elsinore has come and gone for many years, and the lake has flooded, dried up, refilled, flooded, dried up. You get what I mean. And since settlers have been monitoring the lake as early as the 1860s, the lake has dried up and flooded a handful of times. The most recent incident was in the 1950s, and the lake was dried for about a decade. No water meant less tourism, which hurt the city's economy. In the late 80s and the early 90s, the city began a project called the Lake Elsinore Levee Project, where they created new wells and wetland habitats around Lake Elsinore to limit the amount of water loss to evaporation and help keep the water levels steady. They hoped to minimize the effects of evaporation and flooding through this new project, and in 1997, there were conversations about possibly using recycled water during the drier years. This was eventually approved, and now Lake Elsinore receives 5 million gallons of recycled water every day to help keep the water levels where they are. Because of droughts, however, there have been concerns about whether that much water will be enough to keep the lake thriving. The last huge rainfall the city had was in 2016, and the lake seems to be doing fine. The system has worked for a number of years, but oxygen in the water was still causing algae blooms and fish die-offs. As a result, the city installed an aeration system in the lake in the early 2000s. This basically draws the oxygen from the bottom of the lake to the surface, meaning increased precipitation and the removal of different nutrients that can cause algae blooms. Many people question how natural Lake Elsinore is, given that it gets so much recycled and treated water from people. It's obvious that now that people have the power to control or at least influence nature in a lot of crazy and surprising ways. And actually you can see here in this video that there are still some issues with evaporation even at Lake Elsinore, given how much water that it receives on a daily basis. Now I want to take us over to the Salton Sea and look at some of the ways that they've dealt with maintaining the water over there, or not. The Salton Sea has a similar history to Lake Elsinore. Settlers found the Salton sink somewhere around the 1500s, and the Cahuilla peoples were still living near the then Lake Cahuilla. The lake cycled between being full and empty for numerous years, but at this time it only received water from the Colorado River whenever it flooded. The runoff would go to the Salton sink and accumulate in the desert. The Colorado Desert was, and still is, extremely dry, but the settlers realized that the land could be really good for farming. In 1905, settlers living in the area were trying to get water from the Colorado River to the Imperial Valley to water crops, because the Imperial Canal, which was the main source of water for the valley at the time, was blocked with silt. People thought to divert some of the Colorado River into Imperial Valley to make up for this loss of water, but the river actually flooded and water seeped into the Salton Sea. This is the Salton Sea that we see today. What was once a popular tourist destination is now viewed as one of the biggest environmental emergencies in Southern California. The Imperial Valley is one of the hottest places in the world, with temperatures reaching up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in midsummer months. This means lots of sunshine to evaporate the water in the Salton Sea. According to a report made for the Imperial Irrigation District, or IID, the water at the Salton Sea evaporates at a rate of 69 inches per year. This was calculated based on data from 1925 to 2015, so given how much temperatures have continued to rise in the area, it is likely that evaporation rates have increased. What does it really matter if the Salton Sea does dry up? Well, because the lake does not have any outlets and only receives water from agricultural runoff, the sands underneath the waters are full of pesticides and other harmful chemicals. When the sand gets exposed, it is carried in the air and into the nearby communities. Brawley, Nyland, and other towns in the area have seen increased cases of asthma and other health issues. This is similar to what was going on in Lake Elsinore whenever the water dried up over there. One of the biggest issues separating these two bodies of water, though, is the scale. While the ways people have been able to manage Lake Elsinore is impressive, it's hard to say that they would work at a body of water the size of the Salton Sea. There are also a bunch of people who own the land where the Salton Sea is, so getting all of them to agree on what to do has hindered attempts at quote-unquote saving the Salton Sea. There's also the recent discovery of lithium underneath the Salton Sea. This has led many members of the nearby communities to fear for what the future of the Salton Sea and the surrounding areas may look like. Will the harmful pollutants released by the Salton Sea be ignored at the opportunity for new financial gain? The Biden administration recently visited the area surrounding the Salton Sea, and now the Imperial Valley, where the Salton Sea is located, is being referred to by people in government as Lithium Valley. It's a daunting foreshadow of what may be coming in the near future for the valley. As someone who grew up in this area for part of my childhood, I find it really sad to see that corporate greed might win out once again over the environmental needs of a community. While Lake Elsinore may be able to provide some ideas for how to slow down the evaporating process at the Salton Sea, it's unclear as to whether these new opportunities for resources will overshadow the needs of the community, although unfortunately we see how often capitalism ends up winning over the needs of different communities. I wanted to make this video as a way to show how anthropogenic climate change has already been affecting our world and our communities. Climate change affected the indigenous peoples who were living around the lakes when settlers came in and decided to inhabit around these bodies of water. There's also a lot of reports of extreme droughts in Africa. In India, they have record heat waves, and a lot of the insects, because of anthropogenic climate change, are now dying off. And we need a lot of those insects in order to survive, so it might be in our best interest to think of new ways of combating climate change that is also environmentally just for everybody. All of this is happening because these large superpowers, such as multinational corporations and first world governments, continue to excuse ecocide as long as there's money to be made. The IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, recently released its third part of its report documenting all of the different ways that climate change has already been affecting communities around the world and what people can do now in order to stop it, or at least try to minimize as much of the harm as possible. It makes me mad, I hope it makes you mad, but I hope you also know that we are not alone. There are plenty of organizations like Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion, and the Sunrise Movement that are all interested in environmental justice, that are constantly out there organizing for more environmentally just futures. I will put links to their social media outlets and web pages down below, and I will also include all of my sources for everything that I talked about in this video down below as well. Thank you for watching, and take care.